Matt, you have something on your mind today. What is it?
Yes, I have something on my mind today. And so, what I want to talk about today is a mindset issue. And
Nice.
that mindset issue is thinking that we control more of the world than we really do. And
We
so,
don't? Oh my God, I need to update my. I thought we did. Okay, that's news.
yeah, so that's the mindset issue is thinking that we control more of the world than we really do. And so I wanted to call the episode today or call this episode the conceit of control. And what I mean by the conceit of control is, again, thinking that you control more of the world than you really do. And it's thinking that if not everyone is on board with your idea, the gap is on you. And I'll explain more about what I mean by that in a
That
moment.
sounds interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and so again, the gap between what you wanted and what you got or what other people are giving you is
Hmm.
that gap. Closing that gap is entirely on you. The
On you.
focus.
Okay.
Yeah, the focus is on you. Making you better, making you more persuasive. And once I thought
And
that,
that's not true. You're saying.
yeah, that's not true. So I'm saying that the, the that gap is not on you. You cannot control the entirety of that gap. And I mentioned that the focus is on making you more persuasive. And when I thought of that word persuasive, I thought of the seminar that you and I did some years back. I think it was about 10 years ago or something about Robert Cialdini's persuasion or something like that. Do you remember? I think I think that seminar scarred us for life. I think it scarred us both for life. I think it's totally changed the way that we see the world. Uh, because we've kind of talked about it before, but before uh, before the before the seminar, I was, at least me on my end, I was thinking, wow, persuasion, that sounds like a good thing to do. Let's learn how to do it better, blah, blah, blah. And then we gave that presentation or we gave that seminar. And after that series of seminars, I wanted to take a shower.
That's not good. That's not a good sign. Yeah.
Did you have that similar experience?
Not as strong as needing to take a shower, but yes, I had also doubts about the book itself.
Okay. So, I'll mention why this topic, not Chaldean, that was just an aside, but I'll mention why this topic came to mind today. This topic of, the conceit of control and thinking that we control more than we do. And I'll mention why that came to my mind in the last couple of days. And a couple of days ago, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and his name's Joe. He lives in Chicago, and I was having a conversation with him, and he's a business consultant, like a strategy consultant or something like that. And so when we started the conversation, he immediately put on his business consultant hat, and I was like, hey, I'm always up for some business consulting, so let's go down this road, and I'll tell him about one of my issues and get some business consulting out of the conversation. So we have this conversation, and the thing is, I mentioned, I've got the service presentation training that I've been doing for years. It's been my bread and butter for years, still is. But I've got this new service that I'm offering, that helping people sell abroad.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in my perspective, and I mentioned that, okay, I spent months imagining what this service might be, designing the service and imagining what it might be. I spent months on that process. And I thought that, okay, as soon as I make this process public, as soon as I, tell somebody about it, or as soon as I put it on my website or whatever, blah, 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 as soon as I make it public, people are going to come beating down my door, and I'm going to have like a gazillion people wanting the service from me, and I'm going to, there's going to be a flood of customers. And absolutely none of that happened. That didn't happen at all, not even a little bit.
I'll just keep my thoughts to myself for the sake
Yeah.
of the podcast.
Yeah, it was like, how in the movies, tumbleweeds blowing through the desert. It's like there's complete silence and the wind is blowing a tumbleweed across the desert and no one is
Yeah.
even there to notice. So it was like that. And Joe mentioned an interesting thing, and I don't want to knock on his advice at all, because it was perfectly good advice, and I
Mhm.
definitely plan on taking it. So I'm none of this is a knock on his advice at all. But what he was saying was, what he said was, okay, Matt, in these two services, the presentation skills and the selling abroad, in your own, Matt's head way of seeing it, these two are basically the same, because they all build on the same core skill, which is building trust with an audience. Whether you are giving a presentation or whether you're selling something abroad, in particular for the first time, it's about building trust. So in your mind, these two things, they're intimately connected. There is no way to separate these two things. You look at them and you think, though, that's basically two sides of the same coin. It is, if you are in this space, it is so easy to make the jump to the next space. It's like half a step. That's how it looks in your mind. But in reality, like if you go up to any of your past customers, your potential customers, or even if you just go up to anybody, any random person out on the street and say, here are these two things, giving a presentation with PowerPoint and all that, and
Yeah.
selling stuff abroad, they're going to be like, okay, those two things are completely different. And I don't see the connection between those at all. There is no connection between those things. Those two things are completely different. And so what Joe was saying was, Matt, you had perhaps one of the reasons that people are not beating down your door is that you think everyone sees half a step between these two things. And in reality, people are quite understandably not seeing a link between them at all.
Okay.
Maybe that he wasn't saying that is your problem. But he was saying that maybe that is your problem. You need to look into that. So first of all, I thought, okay, this sounds like perfectly good advice. I'm going to take it. Definitely. This is good advice and I'm going to do it. And then after the conversation, I thought a little bit more about what he said, and I'd been kind of on this topic in previous months anyway. I thought, first of all, let me say again, that was perfectly good advice. I'm going to take it. But this advice of there is a gap between, what you want and what other people are doing or what other people are giving you, how other people are responding, it is on you to close that gap. If there's a gap in this example, if there's a gap between, your new service and how other people are perceiving the service, then you need to close that gap. And so the underlying assumption is that if there is a gap, it is on us to close it. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Okay. And I thought, okay, something seems strange about this. Something seems strange about this assumption. And again, I'm questioning the assumption here. The advice itself that Joe gave me, it was perfectly good advice, and I'm planning on following it. But I was like, wait a minute. If you take this assumption and apply it to other things too, imagine that the tables were turned, and imagine that somebody else was looking at you and thinking, okay, Matt is not doing exactly what I want Matt to be doing. So I'm going to improve my approach to the world. I'm going to improve something that I do. I'm going to optimize my technique or whatever. And if I do it well enough, then Matt is just going to do whatever I say. And I thought, boy, if somebody were taking that approach to me, it would piss me off, because I'd be like, hey, wait a minute, what about me? It's like, don't I have any free will? Don't I have any say in this matter? Don't I have the freedom to say yes or no? You're walking around with this assumption that if there's a gap between what you want and what I'm doing, it's all on you to close that gap. And if that's the assumption that you're walking around with, that kind of removes the free will from me and you're pissing me off. So it's like, wait a minute. So this idea that we're walking around with, this idea that if there is a gap, we are the sole ones responsible for closing it. This idea that we're walking around with is pissing other people off. And so that means that when we are giving a presentation, we are pissing our audiences off. We are thinking that if our audience is not doing something, it's because I am not perfect. That idea is pissing other people off. It is removing their free will from them. Does that make any sense?
It does, and I can certainly see why you would call it a relief, or I took the note at least, maybe I call it a relief. So this is a relief, actually. This is a relief that will liberate you from the burden of, oh, I need to persuade. If they are not acting in the way that I want them to,
Yeah.
then it's 100% on me and I need to force it or something like that.
Yeah.
It also sounds a bit of entitled, right? Like as if you push the right buttons and people will react like robots to you.
Yeah, that's an excellent way of putting it. I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's a great way of putting it. What did you say? If you push, say that again. If you
I
push
mean, it's
buttons.
like thinking that, well, if people are not behaving in the way I want them to behave, which means I'm pushing their buttons incorrectly. Like maybe there are no buttons in the first place, or maybe you should not be pushing them in the first place.
Yeah.
I called it a bit of an entitlement to think, "Hmm, so that person is not acting in the way I want them to act, which means I have done something wrong. No, I'm going to keep this word out. No, it's just that it was never your position
Yeah.
in the first place."
That's a great way to describe it because it does cause us unnecessary stress,
Mhm.
and it pisses other people off and it takes away their free will. And in the process, it causes us this unnecessary stress because it causes us to walk around and think if there is a gap between, what I want and what other people are doing, it is up to me to close that gap. And the existence of that gap causes people stress, understandably, because they're thinking, I need to do something. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I need to do something in order to close that gap. And if these other people in your audience have free will, then there's always going to be a gap. There's always going to be a gap. The gap will never completely go away. And so you're always going to be walking around with a gap. And you're always going to be thinking, if you have this mindset, you're always going to be thinking, it's up to me to close that gap. So not only is it entitled, but it is also causing the entitled person's unnecessary stress.
Suffering,
Yeah.
stress and suffering. Yeah.
Uh,
I'm going to introduce a phrase which civilizations thousands of years from now will talk in their text.
Okay. Go
I will
for it.
call it the predictability delusion. I mean, we are not foreign to the idea that humans are predictable, especially in terms of their psychologies. And we have so many examples of it, like the herd mentality, the social norms, etc. But at the same time, I mean, why did you behave the way that you behaved yesterday at 4:15 in the afternoon? God knows why. So
Huh?
there will always be the unpredictability in our nature.
Yeah.
And to think that, well, for them to behave in the way that I want them to behave, and if they don't, which means it's my shortcoming, I think it is automatically assuming that people function like Excel,
Uh,
like if this, then that,
uh-huh.
and we don't.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we do, sometimes we do it in so many stupid ways, but
Huh?
sometimes we don't.
Yeah.
So which means we're not machines, we're not robots. So it's not just you pushing the wrong buttons, it's just you delusioning yourself, diluting yourself. I don't know how to say it, but having the delusion that there are buttons in the first place. Maybe
Yeah.
there are.
So, okay. So the next step that I went on this was asking myself in a presentation context, since this is a presentation related podcast. So, in a presentation podcast, what can we do about this? Is there anything that we can do about this? Which, I understand, in a podcast entitled The Conceit of Control, the, the asking the question, what can we do about it? That in itself is, it's like, there's a lot of room for problems there, but
Yeah.
I'm going to go there anyway. So I'm going to list a couple things that we could do about it. And,
Okay.
and then you tell me what thoughts occur to you. Okay. One thing that we could do about this is that, you know, before your presentation starts, before people walk into the room, before you're standing up there on stage, when you're back home at your kitchen table or something like that, list the major influences that you cannot control. And the point is not to control them, because they are by definition things that you cannot control. But
Mm-hmm.
you are listing them so that you remind yourself that there is a lot going on that you have no control over. Like for example, if I'm sitting down at my kitchen table the night before my presentation and I'm making this list, one thing I might put on the list is, maybe traffic is bad coming to work that day. So my audience arrives late, and I'm thinking, oh, they hate me and I suck, and, they don't think this is important, and so they're late. But the reality is that they just had bad traffic. So and another thing that they cannot control is that, that you cannot control. Maybe, so another thing that you might list at your kitchen table is that, maybe their kid woke up with the flu or something that morning. And
Yeah.
so they had to make emergency plans for a babysitter or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the point of this is you're not sitting at your kitchen table making this list so that you can control these things or even adjust for them. You're making this list to remind yourself that there's a lot that could be going on that is going to affect your life, and there is absolutely nothing that you can do to stop it.
Yes.
That's one thing. And I guess the second thing that I guess you could do is while you are giving your presentation, acknowledge that there are some unknowns in the plan. There are some things that you cannot control. Like, for example, let's say that, don't stand up there and say, oh, here's my plan. I suggest that we do XYZ and it's going to go perfectly. And, the plan XYZ is going to, be executed perfectly, and it's going to end up exactly like we think it is. And instead, identify that, yeah, this is the plan XYZ, and and this is what it's based on. So, and it's based on some pretty solid ground. So it's, I'm not crazy to stand up here and tell you that we should be doing XYZ, but there are some things that might affect it. Maybe, a meteor is going to strike the earth, or, our budget is going to get cut, or sales are going to be
Pretty
down next.
close examples. Okay.
Yeah. Pardon me.
Pretty close examples like meteor and budget cuts. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, the point here is that during your presentation, you are acknowledging that, yes, I want to do XYZ. And yes, there is a good base of evidence to think that XYZ is quite possible. we're not crazy to be suggesting XYZ, but there are things out there that might be affecting XYZ. And acknowledge in your presentation, acknowledge that those things are in fact out there.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to add one more line to the things that you can do.
yeah,
And I'm thinking that maybe we can make another episode on this, but it is going to be detaching yourself from the outcome of the presentation.
detaching yourself from the outcome of the presentation. That's interesting. Tell me more. What do you mean by that?
Well, in a nutshell, like I said, we can talk more about this in a future episode, but in a nutshell, it's about doing your best work to prepare, to deliver, and to engage the audience, but beyond a certain point, admitting that you will not be able to influence the outcome because you are talking to people with free will, and they will be the decision makers, maybe based on the things that you shared with them.
Okay.
But unless you put a gun to their heads, which is not practical presentation advice, they are not obligated to behave in the way that you want them to behave. So detaching yourself from the outcome, I'm not talking about releasing yourself from the responsibility of making your best effort. I am actually charging you with the responsibility of putting your best effort and then detaching yourself from the outcome.
Okay. Let me see if I'm hearing you correctly. So it sounds like what you're suggesting, it's kind of a being sort of in a Zen state about your life and your presentation and your idea. Yeah, I want to do the best that I can, and I'm going to do as much as I can, and I'm going to be the best that I can. But in the end, there's a lot that's out of my hands. And so I just need to be cool with that. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, it's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So again, this what started out as a very theoretical podcast. Actually, we ended up with a short list of things that you can actually do with this theory. So we're not just spouting off some weird theory that Matt came up with the other day. We actually have something to do about it.
Yeah. And we're ending with a Zen state.
Yes, we're ending with a Zen state. There we go. Okay. And ending with a Zen state, I guess, is kind of, it's kind of the point of this podcast is that you need to approach life with a Zen state. All right. So,
said two of the most controlled freaks in the world, but okay.
Yeah. But by the way, yeah. So a little disclaimer, this whole thing about being Zen and, realizing that your control has boundaries is being brought to you by two people who think that they can control everything. Okay.
I can imagine at least some of our audience members thinking, wait, did Alper say what?
Yeah, they're
he
like,
said, let's go of control.
they're like, okay, that's nice, but we want Matt and Alper back because the words coming out of their mouths, they've been obviously occupied by aliens. This is not what Matt and Alper would actually say in real life.
We have been possessed.
Yeah. Okay, so before we wrap this podcast up, so anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I think we're all good.
Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in today. And Alper and I will see you for the next episode then.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.